It all starts with a player named Minecart Avenger, or Eric, who not only broke several world speedrun records, because he's been in Minecraft for so long, he's always inspired trust in the community. On January 28, 2022 years ago, he broke the global speedrun record, finishing the game in nothing less than 2 minutes and 21 seconds. And for months, Eric's time remained unbeatable until only in 2021 a new record breaker named Feinberg appeared and shocked the community once again. Additionally, Mine Avenger mainly analyzed Dream's live streams, gathering dozens of data pieces that confirmed certain cheats still unknown to most people. Well, to put all this into context, we need to go back a few years and rewatch clips taken directly from Dream's videos. At the time when he was accused of cheating, Mine Avenger, being an extremely experienced player, noticed some strange things coming from Dream's livestream. The Minecraft legend often appeared lucky in his videos, even getting great trades with piglins in the nether. These facts contributed to raising suspicions, causing several players to start doubting Dream's achievements. And all this discussion started in an innocent, moderate, and incisive way on Twitter, raising some suspicions and even showing evidence about some very suspicious processes carried out in Dream's videos and live streams. And well, all of this was proven. Dream was using some things that gave him an advantage in the game, and I even explained this in a video I posted at the time. Dream himself admitted it. The curious thing is that years later, Mine Avenger would be accused of exactly the same thing he himself accused Dream of years before. The person who first doubted and exposed Dream's achievements is now being exposed for cheating himself. That's pretty ironic, isn't it? Before we move on, we need to talk a little about this game mode. In case you don't know, there are two types. The ones with preset seeds, which is when players play in worlds that have already been generated before. Therefore, they know where the chests, villages, the stronghold, and everything else are located. This way, they can practice at any time and develop the best techniques and strategies to get the best time on that same map. The other type is random seeds, where a new map is created every time we start a new game. Just like it normally happens, it takes a lot more luck and skill. That's what drew attention and raised suspicions about Mine Avenger's speedruns, as he was also very lucky, because he always ended up spawning in villages with villagers and nether portal ruins all very close to each other. In fact, even the river he needed to cross was full of dolphins, which gave him more speed to swim. However, the most interesting thing about Mine Avenger's speedruns happened in the end. For those who don't know, the time it takes for the dragon to actually attack the player is completely random, and it can happen in a few minutes or in just a matter of seconds. What happened was that this player always suffered several attacks from the Ender Dragon in an inexplicably fast way. In thousands of other attempts, the dragon was never this quick with its attacks. And this allowed the player to kill the mob much faster than any other speedrunner. Additionally, the mob's fastest attack was 23 seconds, but in Mine Avenger's world, it was only 21. And this happened in every attempt. This fact made people curious about why the Ender Dragon was acting this way. Besides that, they wanted to learn how to replicate this so they could also kill the mob faster. However, no matter how hard they tried, they could never figure out the reason, or even match the Ender Dragon's attack speed from Eric's world. We should also remember that in the past, knowledge about the game's programming was much more limited, something that only changed over time. And well, despite all of this being very suspicious, it still hasn't been possible to reach a concrete conclusion of cheating in the game. However, sometime later, something even more alarming was exposed, and finally, it could be proven in the right way. In September, Mine Avenger was in one of his live streams trying to break the record. It was a speedrun in the preset seed category, and one of the main strategies on this map was to collect 20 obsidian blocks from the chests in the villagers' villages, which were located very close to the spawn. This way the player could have blocks to go to the nether much faster. However, the chances of finding 20 obsidian blocks at once in these places was 1 in 479, while Eric found them every time he spawned. In all Minecraft maps, the contents of the chests are determined by the world's seed. This means that if Eric was playing on the same seed, he would always get the same items. In versions 1.14 and 1.15 which Eric played, chest contents were more random with each world generation. And still being very lucky, Mine Avenger only needed to open 2 chests to find all the obsidian he needed, until on September 5th he set a new world record of just 2 minutes and 6 seconds. That way he shot up in the rankings, staying 8 seconds ahead of the second place. And this fact, besides shocking the speedrun community, drew attention because of the excessive luck that Eric was having with his chests. A forum member named Accusations decided to pursue the programming data behind the worlds where Eric played. He saw that Mine Avenger opened 290 chests and found 796 obsidians, averaging 2.65 blocks per chest. Highly unlikely, since the game's wiki says the chance of finding the item there was 1.46 per chest. And that's it guys, there's no such thing as a perfect crime. All these little details only increased the suspicion that the whole community had about this player. Until checkmate, the last move. In Minecraft, 1.15 chest contents depend on your seed number. And well, the number of possible seeds that could be created was no less than 281 trillion, practically infinite. That means the chests could have endless content variations. We'd need to check the internal data of the seeds Eric played on to see if they were generated organically. To do this, software had to be created to check and analyze world generations millions of times. Though it seemed difficult or unlikely, the players created a program that clearly demonstrated and proved two inconsistencies. These could not happen naturally in any way, proving once and for all that the seeds he was playing on were indeed manually altered. However, they didn't expect that right after this first proof, several of Eric's schemes were uncovered. Many actually occurred in previous world records. A clear example was in August 2020 when the player broke the random seeds record with a time of 22 minutes and 47 seconds. Although that time wasn't enough for Eric to reach first place, it still put him in the top 10. Reviewing the record clips, everything initially seems normal. However, when Eric is about to create a new world, the timer on the right side of the screen jumps from 0 minutes to 13 minutes inexplicably. Furthermore, when the player selects the option to create a new world, the mouse position changes to a very different one, a little higher than where it was before. These facts alone would be more than enough to prove that there is editing in these records. However, we don't stop there. On the initial screen where Avengers spawned, there's an open forest with trees, a plain ahead, and mountains in the background. Just before he entered this map on the Create New World screen, the thumbnails show another world had already been created, and with exactly the same characteristics as the one we just saw. We should point out that if Eric was playing with random seeds, he could never have played in this same world at any previous time. There's no way we'll end up on the same map. So that was an extremely childish mistake, which proved that not only had he already played on that seed, but he was also editing the video to make it look like it was his first time. And something curious to mention is that Mine Avenger has a twin brother who is also a Minecraft player and, believe it or not, also a speedrunner. But what's interesting here is knowing that, according to some members of the community, he only started taking advantage and cheating after all the competitors were placed in a ranking that, by the way, included him and his brother. In other words, he wasn't just deceiving the community and Minecraft players, but also his own family. At that time, he was breaking records with slightly faster times than his brother. On November 9, 2022, after all this controversy and even this worldwide embarrassment came to light, the player was permanently banned from the community. The most surprising part was Eric's response. He uploaded his map data for anyone to see. And besides that, he wrote that he had been banned unfairly, since he had just been lucky to find those obsidians several times in a row. And at the end of the message, he clarifies that he had already been benefited a few times, but in the distant past, far from the current speedruns. However, none of that softened the moderators' hearts, who confirmed Avenger's permanent ban. The things that happened to Eric were not only surprising or circumstantial, but were also literally impossible and involved a mathematically almost non-existent percentage. So, in the end, the only reason he was able to uncover Dream's cheating was that in this case he knew very well what he was getting into.